Gonna hit record. All right, well, welcome to our Empowered Women's Call. I'm so excited to be able to host Dr. Nima today. It is the 9th of April 2019 if you are watching this back. And I just, honestly, this man, I could go through your credentials, which you know better than me, Nima. But I think what is more profound is not who someone is, what their credentials are. It's what they say and the impact they make in the world. And you came into my life, Nima, at a time where I was having the greatest challenge, I guess, I've ever known, or the biggest transition. And you really helped me navigate through that with such ease, grace, and flow. And really, in the scheme of things, in the timeline of things, I'll look back and it kind of barely skipped a beat, really, in my life, just in a matter of months. And I think if I was to pinpoint the one gift that you gave me, is that when I was transitioning into becoming an independent mum, I realized that I had this past conditioning deep in my subconscious somewhere, and you identified it really quickly, is that I had some kind of belief that being an independent mom somehow meant that I was less valuable in the world. And you sort of picked me up and straightened my crown and reminded me of my value and my worth. And I've never loved myself more or felt more of my power as a woman today. And I'm not sure if you really know this, but after every coaching call, I would have all these notes and all these I am statements that you would kind of give me throughout the call. And I would just look at that book every day, and in those moments where I felt not at my greatest strength. So what you're going to talk about today is becoming trigger proof. And we can only control ourselves in life. We cannot control what our partners do. We cannot control, what people do in our businesses. And so it's so important that we become self-resourced and take responsibility for our own triggers, because when they don't, they become very destructive in all areas of our life. And I could have gone down that pathway. This really could have destroyed me and everything that I've worked really hard for. And you really helped me self-resource, and you gave me some incredible tools. So I'm not going to take up any more time, but I just want to acknowledge you and thank you so much for the strength that you gave me through such a challenging time. And I just feel so blessed to bring you to this community of women. And I know that, we're going to get so many gifts today out of what you have to share.
You're bringing some tears to my eyes, Kira, because I look at the journey that got me here, and the words that you just shared was a dream of mine last year, and I didn't know. I would never have guessed that I would be having this conversation, and why. And I don't know if you know the details of why, but as I'm sharing with, I don't know how many women, I feel it a duty and an obligation to explain why this work is so important to me, and supporting women like yourself is so important to me. Because it was done on the other side of a great deal of pain. Over a year ago, I had a disagreement with my partner at the time. And this was after 3 years of really building this, leaving my chiropractic practice, which I absolutely love, helping people with stress-related disorders. I was always frustrated why I couldn't get to the root cause. Every time a patient was coming to see me with a stress-related problem, a digestive issue, and chronic pain, I knew that there was stress as an underlying trigger that started the process of unfolding of their health. We know that to be true, but I wasn't addressing it in the chiropractic office. So I always dreamed of leaving the confines of the office so that I could actually make a bigger difference. And how much time do we have, just so that I know?
An hour, so...
Perfect. So I have just perfect time. We're gonna go into it. I want to share with you why this is so important to me to talk about this, and why this is relevant to you. In all transparency, I want to be very transparent with it too. The business, when I left my chiropractic practice, the transition of leaving my day job, which was chiropractic, to pursue my dream, which is to be a teacher and a speaker and a healer, was very, very volatile, was very scary, if you can remember that transition. And I call it transitional anxiety. So you guys might want to take some notes through this, because it's going to be very relevant for your business and your personal life, sharing my journey as well of what I've learned and the discoveries in my recovery. And soon after I left my chiropractic practice, I went through this identity crisis of which I had to find the resources within myself. I hired a mentor. I spent a good investment of finding the right guide to help me with the specific problem that I had going on, which is very important for everybody to do, is to find a guide that they feel understands them. Doesn't matter about the credentials. She was talking about credentials. It doesn't matter. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a teacher, and I guide people through the problems that I went through from a knowledge and an experience basis. And what I saw was that my business, after I resourced myself with my partner that I was part of, we were doing amazingly well. And the success grew faster than my ego could actually handle it. You're smiling. I see you're smiling. I'm just calling myself out here, honey. Sharing my shame, because Brene Brown says that I should probably do that if it's a good idea for us to do that. I'm just telling you what Brene Brown told me what to do. So what happened was I became, on one hand, I really valued the fact that, just with talking to someone, we can transform past resentments, shame, regret. We can, like a wizard, we can turn it around. Their health turns around, their lives turn around, their businesses turn around, their relationships turn around. And it started getting to my head that I was becoming this guy, and it became about that image. It became about putting out an image externally on social media, in the public, but in my personal life, I wasn't actually living congruently. And so what happened was this imbalance that we have, and this is what we're talking about being trigger proof. And I'm sharing it with you because so that you might be able to see a little bit of yourselves in my share, that the number one cause of our triggers is the inauthentic kind of hiding of something that we're toxically ashamed about. Okay? The more that you hide something, the toxic shame builds up this ego defense mechanism that has you say, I do not want anybody to, I don't want to be found out. So I'm going to put up a wall and I'm going to put up this pretending. And that's where your triggers are, is in the fear of exposing yourself. That's the underlying big one. So I'm going to turn this around for you as you're listening. And I want you to ask yourself this question. And this is not calling you out, but I want you to see what constraints are happening in your life. And as you're looking at those constraints, ask yourself the question, what guilt or shame am I holding on to? Maybe it was an affair. Maybe it was something unethical that you did. Maybe you went through an event and the whole thing was so embarrassing, you just don't want anyone to know. The thing that was happening in my relationship that was so like I just didn't want anyone to know is that we had a great deal of volatility. The arguments that we would have, externally we were out changing the world, but behind the scenes, we were triggering the crap out of each other. And it was as though my little 3-year-old and her little 3-year-old were at war with one another and consistently, and we would do the work on it, and we would just consistently have this volatile relationship that was also highly sexually charged as well. Now you have this.
Can I just point out there is when you are triggered, it tends to revert you back to your childish behaviors, right? You become completely unresourceful and immature in your responses, ashamed of how you respond.
Right, ashamed, right. When you get triggered, you get knocked into an old emotional wound and you regress back to the age that you were in that wound. And so one of my clients that I was doing a session with today is having some big conflict at work. Like nobody's really getting along with her and she's having a real tough time at work. And when we regressed her back, when we got into her trigger and we brought it up, we regressed back and it was like when she was 18. She was bullied in college. She was 8 years old. She was, prettiest girl, great dancer. So she was bullied. You can relate a little bit to some of that. We talked about that a little bit, Kira. So this is common, right? You're going back. And so when somebody doesn't like you, or somebody triggers you, and you're even in your business, you get a no, you get a rejection. That feeling of rejection is an old wound, and you literally regress back and you become that age. You become 2 3-year-olds. Have you ever looked at your husband and said, God, this guy is acting like an effing child? Who can relate to this? Who can relate? Or when you get knocked into your wound, you start pouting and going, like a little teenager. Yeah, it's what you do. Now, what happened was, 2 3-year-olds in our relationship, that's fine on the schoolyard playground when you're 3, but when you're 40 something, early 40s, and you're late 30s, and there's an 80-pound difference between you, shit can go wrong. And what happened was, I lost it. I completely lost control. I went into my wound. And moms, if you've ever experienced this, and you lose it and you lose control of yourself, I actually physically hurt her to the point where it was the biggest wake-up call in my life. And the reason why I want to share that with you guys is because I have about 43 or however many moms watching, and I want to be very transparent with why this is so important to me to share to you. Because in that moment when it happened, I was so overcome with guilt and shame that I did not want to live, because I thought, how the hell am I, somebody who's this big and this important and has changed so many lives, who espouses emotional mastery, how do I hurt the woman that I love? How is it that I do that? And I say this with an incredible amount of trepidation and fear, and the amount of work that I went through to be able to be very honest and transparent and really share that, and then say, okay, number one, how the hell did I get there? Number two, how the hell do I make sure that it doesn't happen again? And number three, if I can do 1 and 2, if I, by the grace of God, through the work that I'm about to do, if I can do 1 and 2, then I want to help change the world with it. I want to help people who are stuck in this limbo, volatile state in their relationship, and I want to be the go-to guy to help heal. But before I did that, I went through this period where I stopped working. I said, I don't want to work. I don't feel like I'm ready to teach. I don't think I'm worthy of it. I feel like a fraud. I can't really help people if I have this inside and this happened. And how do I become trigger proof? How do I get to the point where I feel complete safety? I can make a woman feel safe. I can feel like, and then I looked around, and there aren't that many people, especially men, willing to actually step up and say, hey, we got some work to do, gentlemen. We got some work to do to step up in our responsibility, to take charge, to take action. And there wasn't any great mentors. In fact, there was a mentor that I reached out to who totally turned the shame on me and threatened me. And it was the scariest time of my life. And so I stopped working. And what I did was I found the right guides and the right mentors. And I started learning how to regulate my nervous system, all the stuff that I'm about to share with you guys in a little bit, how to get to that point where you're really the one in control of your own emotions, so that you can actually have love in your relationships, you can have intimacy, so that people can actually feel safe around you to express themselves without worrying that you're going to freaking freak out on them, so that you can actually love yourself if you have kind of crossed the line when you're with your children. I know being a mother is so overwhelming. You have all of these things going on, and you're judging yourself for being such a crappy mom, and then all of a sudden they lose it, and then you feel this pang of rejection, and then you react, and then you do stuff and break stuff. And like when this happened, I went crawling into a hole until I came out and I started sharing this with people. And then I realized how common this is. It's scary how common that this is going on. There's violence, there's with children, with partners. You know, this is so, like, this is such an epidemic, and nobody's talking about it in a conscious way. They're talking about it in a way of victim, perpetrator, poor me. And by me sharing this, I guarantee you that it's going to trigger you. Please be aware of when I'm sharing, what I'm sharing with you right now is supposed to bring stuff up good. I want to start helping you, because this is now my message. My mess is now my message. And there's nothing more triggering than the freaking truth.
When you get triggered, right? When I find myself getting triggered, it's like, there's still more work to do there. Like, that's the blinking lights of this is where you need to go to work. It's self-reflection. It's not the person's fault.
Sister, you got it. Thank you. By the way, you guys, what she just said was impossible in October. She never would have said that in October. It was always the other person's fault. But I got so much love in my heart for you, Kira, for saying that. So essentially what I realized was I had some work to do, and I started, as I came out of the woodwork and started sharing this with friends, they started coming up to me and saying, Nima, I'm having this problem in my marriage too. Me too. All of a sudden, I think this thing, and it was my ex's idea, because we did so much work together on this, is that we should create another hashtag here called us too. Because I knew, like, I thought I was alone. And then I started sharing, and I was like, oh my God. So my buddy Trevor was like, me and my partner are going through the same thing. Can you help us? And I'm like, I'm not working right now. I'm just doing my own work. However, you're a friend, and I would love it if I would just share everything and just help you out, because I'm a wizard at doing this stuff. I'll share with you all the new revelations of being trigger-proof. And so we started working together. I took a couple of friends as clients, and I started sharing with them the 5 steps that I'm going to share with you right now. Lo and behold, this one couple who had a premature baby that they were dealing with, and volatility and business challenges, one stress after another. And when you're going through a lot of stress, your nervous system is in fight or flight. You're very trigger happy, if you haven't noticed. Look at your life. You get triggered very easily, and you don't have control over your mind when you have high levels of stress hormones coursing through your veins. So I taught them the principles of self-regulation, and then communication strategies and empathy and all of these things that I'm going to share with you guys. And lo and behold, their relationship transformed from getting a lawyer and like volatility. And there was some breakdowns that I was helping them through, but now they work together in the same business, and their business is doing better than it ever has. And they have 2 healthy babies. Now, do they get triggered and they go through triggers? Yes. Of course, but they now have the tools to be able to self-regulate so that now they can create a business and a life that they love, right? And then all of a sudden, person after person started coming in. And then months later, as I'm like, wow, I'm onto something here. Kira reaches out to me and shares with me what she's going through. And I said, let's get to work, sister. And it is my great honor to be able to see. I just want to acknowledge you, Kira, because you went through probably the worst challenge of your life, and within a few months of guidance, like I wish my ego would love to take all the credit for your complete transformation. However, I want to acknowledge you that 3 or 4 months, of us working together, you create this event with your ex or your partner, and you are like just rocking it on stage, loving yourself. You are a testament to the work, and it's an absolute, it would be my dream career if I can just work with people like you that are just so willing to be called out, willing to be told the truth.
And it was brutal, by the way. I just want to share with you guys. There was brutal moments where you called me out. It was
an asshole.
but I was ready for it because there was so much pain and there was so much on the line. You know, Adam and I grew this incredible empire together. There was a lot on the line. And more importantly than that, we have two beautiful girls. And nothing pains me more than to see parents who separate, who cannot get along for the sake of the children. And that is our greatest commitment. And the truth is, we're going to probably continually trigger each other in different ways. And it's our responsibility to master those so that we can control ourselves and really have great rapport with one another for business, but more importantly for the family.
That just makes me emotional just hearing you say that, because that's really what it's about. So what happened was, in this mess has emerged this very deep why, this very deep sense of why that I really have, that I want to help transform families. Because this whole cycle of trauma, cycle of abuse, cycle of volatility and triggers and things, things are said and hurt that happens. It didn't start with you, but it can end with you if you're willing to take on these steps. And I wanted to share these with you. And I came in with no agenda except to tell the truth of the journey that got me here and why I love doing this. And, you guys are very sweet. If something's coming up for you, please don't hesitate to write. I don't have any Kleenex, or I wasn't expecting to cry on this, but that's basically, I've cried more. Here's the other thing is, I've cried more in doing this work over the last year than I probably have in like the last 30 of my years of my life. Because what I realized is that the more that you can get in touch with feeling, this whole being trigger proof here, it's not about feeling better. It's about getting better at feeling. And the better that you can get at feeling, rather than blocking it, rather than kind of suppressing it, which actually causes your stress response to go higher, to be able to express emotion and not make yourself wrong and not make the other person involved wrong is an art form that I sucked so bad, clearly, that I made it my mission to master it for me, because I wanted to create an amazing, badass relationship, a heart-centered business that truly transforms people's lives, that's based on love, and business, relationship, and my health. Your health depends on your ability to become trigger-proof. So I'm going to give you the 5 steps. And I'm going to open it up for some Q&A. If you got to cry, go ahead and cry. Peta, Ali, thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions that you have, please don't hesitate.
I'll keep an eye. There's a bunch of people on Facebook too, so I'll keep an eye on that.
Oh, is that right? Okay, so you keep an eye on that, Kira, and then let me know whatever is relevant. And I'm here. I'm just here to share with you guys. And I'm going to give you everything I got. And if there's something that you want more, I'm going to recommend you reach out to me, and I'm going to give you the link for a free training about this. It's a 30-minute beautiful video that with case studies, and I'm going to give you the number for it afterwards. You just text it and it goes right into your inbox, and I'm going to get you guys to watch it because I want you all to learn as much as possible. So these are the 5 steps, it's about making 5 critical shifts that can make you turn you into becoming trigger proof. Now, the first one is you have to un-F your nervous system. Unscrew your nervous system. Un-F your nervous system. I'm just going to be PG right now. Because chances are anxiety, if you're in the Western world, 70% of people are riddled with anxiety to the point where it affects their sleep. It affects their ability to be present. It affects their health, like digestive disturbances, irritable bowel, obviously insomnia, depression. They're all anxiety disorders, and it's because of a nervous system that's dysregulated. Your body is holding on to emotional and physical trauma from your past. We all have it. That's the cause of the triggers. That's the cause of the volatility. It's like being chased down by a tiger. You must unscrew your nervous system. How? By habits and rituals, by routines, with meditation, breath work is highly recommended. Getting chiropractic care, exercise. If you're not actively doing the necessary self-regulation work to bring your nervous system from activated to regulated, you're at the mercy of your ego.
Can I just add there, can I just make this super relatable to particularly all the mums who are watching?
Oh,
you have the constant stresses and triggers of children who are in need consistently throughout the day of our service and our attention, and it's challenging to find moments for yourself. And maybe it's, you know, you're getting ready for school in the morning and it starts from the minute that you open your eyes and you've told them to put their shoes on 5 times in a row and they still haven't. If your nervous system isn't regulated, this is when we do things that we regret. This is when we say things that we regret. So it's, and like what you said, like for me, my daily ritual every morning, I get to the gym, and when I had babies, I would book them in to the daycare. I knew I had an hour to breathe with no noise, no children pulling at me. And that was one thing that would consistently help me regulate my nervous system. So I just wanted to make that relatable to what you're talking about.
100%. You just said it. If you're dysregulated, chances are the kid's going to have a meltdown, and instead of being the holding space for it to neutralize it, you won't be able to see the innocence of that child.
You will feel the blow up. And this used to happen with Madeline, my youngest. She's an Aries like me. It's fire and fire. So if I was not regulated and she had a massive explosion, it would be like throwing petrol on it when I was not regulated. If I'm regulated, I can disarm her very quickly.
Totally. But when you get this part right with the breath, I'm going to give you something. I mean, there's tools. I mean, I have an entire program. We go into this, but it starts with a breath. So pay attention right now to your breath, and you might even notice you're not even taking deep breaths. They're very shallow. They're up here. And your relationship with your breath is your relationship with the universe. If you're not taking in, you're not receiving. If you're forcing the exhale, you're trying to control rather than the surrender, like a deep breath, receiving, and the surrender. So I literally had to relearn how to breathe and get back into it every single moment that I could remember. And when you get this right, here's the key. When you get this right, moms, your nervous system attunement can actually ripple and transform an entire family. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that when you started, Kira, doing the work and regulating yourself, that the kids somehow magically became easier to manage?
Well, and what we've been discussing on the 3 sessions before this one, Nima, is as women, I believe that the emotional state of the household is our responsibility, because our emotional state affects the children and it affects our partners, because men just want their women to be happy and children just want their mums to be happy. And when we're not, it causes complete disruption in their emotional state.
Totally.
It's the biggest why. Even if you don't love yourself enough to do it, which hopefully you will after this coaching, you have to love your children enough to manage your own emotional state.
A rising tide lifts all boats. If you can just up-level your selfishness right now, then the entire family will benefit. I mean, if I look back at my life growing up, is the mental state of mom, as you just said, just pretty much ran the whole house. And if she was down, we were just like, oh God. I mean, it was, she ran the house. And that's probably funny because probably the moms are going, oh God, that was like my mom. Oh crap, I'm turning into my mom. Something I promised myself I wouldn't do, right? And so here we are in that. And that's because your mother did not know how to regulate her nervous system, didn't get the right training and coaching, right? And so that's the first step. And when you get it right, all of a sudden, you're the one at cause. You can then handle adversity much better. Second part is you must get complete with past resentments and regrets. This is one of those things where I was like, Kira, as we get to work, she's like upset with what's going on. And I was like, Kira, let's start talking about, getting complete with certain people in your family. And there might be a massive resistance to you when I say that. There might be this wall going, oh, hell no, my father is so-and-so, and you're going to throw a label about your mother or your father or your brother or a past lover. I want you to take a moment and just take a moment and see what is constraining you the most in your life right now. What's the biggest constraint that you have? That's number one. The second part is, what are your greatest resentments and regrets from your past about other people in other members of your family, your primordial relationships? And I guarantee you, every single client that I've worked with, we've been able to link the two together. And how do you deal with this constraint that's going on now is you go back to the regressed version of that constraint, which is called transference. You're transferring into you right now. And we go in and we heal that. And we see the benefits of that. And we find how that served you. And we drop your ego into that. And we reconnect and get you to see the innocence of that other person in that scene, and the innocence of yourself in that scene. And when you do that and you heal that, all of a sudden the constraint in your current reality starts to dissolve. You start to feel a lightness. You start to understand the link and go, oh, geez, wow. And you start to love yourself more. And when you get the nervous system regulation at the same time as clearing your primordial relationships, former lovers, past relationships, your mother, father, brothers and sisters, all of those that you're holding on to resentment towards, when you do that, you feel a sense of freedom and a sense of presence. Please write that down. Presence arrives when you're clear from your past and you have a regulated nervous system. Clear from past resentments. You're now present. So if you're wondering and you're looking at your life and you're wondering, oh, I'm so easily triggered, I'm not present, I'm always in my head somewhere else, is because you have a dysregulated nervous system and you are energetically stuck in the past. And the good news is, with the right tools, we can actually unwind it. You can actually unwind that. When you do that, this present challenge isn't insurmountable. You get it. You're like, I know exactly what to do. Once you clear that, the other side becomes really clear. So what I'm going to ask you right now, take a moment and look in your own life, okay? And I want you to ask this question: what impact would it make in my family, in my business, in my life, if I were to take on and prioritize regulating my nervous system through yoga, breath work, chiropractic, meditation, and exercise and journaling, living according to your highest values? There's a whole process that I take people through. It's like step by step, module 1, this is what you do to regulate your nervous system. What would happen in your life? What benefits and impacts would you see? I'd like to see it in the comment section. And Kira, I want you to read them to me. What would open up for you if you just took those two things on? Because there's more. I got more for you. But just with those two things, what would open up for you?
So some people have been just writing around how they're not managing their children well because they're not managing their own emotional state.
You're not alone, sister.
And and a lot of anxiety, which comes up in business and in parenting.
So what you're saying then is you will have a calmer state at home. You're self-regulated. Your tone is chill. And then you have power because you'll ripple and the kids will start mirroring that. Because chances are, if you look, the way that I was raised with so much anxiety and dysregulation and in the past, obviously I'm kind of taking it in. Now, I'm not blaming my parents. They have no freaking clue about this stuff. This is new. This is brand new. Like, in fact, here's what I believe is that as soon as I discovered this, I was like, holy crap, it's my duty to take this work on, not just for myself and future generations, but also for my parents as well, because they never had any opportunity. And here's what I discovered. when I took on clearing my past resentments, even towards them, I actually moved in with them so that I can work on my resentments with them. I did the unthinkable. Ram Dass says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your parents. I literally put my place up for rent, my home, this condo. I put it up on Airbnb, and I moved in with them just so that I can do what I'm sharing with you now, just because I wanted my life to be a laboratory. And what I did was I cleared the resentment. Now, there was difficulty, there was challenges, but as I cleared the resentment that I had towards them, they were healing too. They were becoming more empathetic. I had an impact on them because of the work that I was doing. What a gift that I was giving, not just to my future generations, not just to anybody who's willing to listen to me, is not so pissed off at me, isn't willing to hear my story and share my discoveries, but for my parents and my relationship with them. You remember, Kira, they showed up at the workshop. They came in and it wasn't expected. We were kind of still doing the work, and they showed up and they're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And so it was great to have them there. And so my relationship with them has totally changed because of that. And so why I'm saying that to you is because you have the ability to impact your children, and the way that they're going to have anxiety and have their relationships. They're literally mirroring what's happened to your nervous system, and you're holding on to stories from the past, just like your mother did and didn't do the necessary work to invest in herself, to prioritize herself so that she could be at cause for the complete transformation. And so when moms do that, all of a sudden the husband's like, holy cow, like something's got into you. You're different. And that inspires, Tell me if you can relate to that, Kira.
Yeah, totally. And because someone else put here as well, a deeper connection and relationship with my husband, reducing stress and reactions. So often, I guarantee that the arguments you guys had a year ago with your partners, 99% of them you wouldn't even remember a year later. And really it's because we're responding to such small quality, like lack of quality problems, because we're not regulated, and it causes disconnect. And when you're doing that day after day, just small, unimportant things, you are just broadening that disconnection. And then over time in your relationship, that the distance is caused by those little things.
Totally. So I'm seeing some of your replies. There would be less fear. You'd be a better, relationship with husband, reduce. Amazing. All true. And so what would it mean to you to really take action on this, to take action on this so that your business, now here, how does this impact your business? Well, guess what? You don't have a business problem. You have a personal problem that's impacting your business. And by doing this inner work, you're actually, when I started doing this inner work, I had no business at the time. I was just doing this inner work, and then I would meet people. And they would just come to me, and I'd be like, yeah, I can help you. Let me share with you my story. Let me be very transparent with you of my journey, because I don't want you to think that I'm just kind of like putting on a face, and I want to share with you the discoveries on my recovery. I'm a teacher, and I teach what I most need to learn. And so that's really what my gift is now, is to be able to share that. And the third part, which was the most difficult, step number 3, is probably one of the biggest challenges. And I want you to think of this. Think of the thing you're most ashamed about. For me, it was what I just shared earlier. I'm terrified of exposing something like that. The thing that you're most ashamed of now, I look at some of the clients that we've worked with, and they had past, sexual trauma. They were the perpetrators, and they had an incredible amount of guilt, and they want to die, and they feel this incredible amount of shame. Or they were exposed with a family member, and there was some confusion along that. And if that's going on for you, please understand how not alone you are. Okay, please understand how, if you're holding on to toxic shame, because this is how this is how to be trigger proof. It's like an intimacy upgrade. So that number 3 is to learn how to dance with your dark passenger of shame, ego, wounded inner child. You have a shadow part of you, an aggressive, bitchy, sexually perverse, this part of you that's there, that's your animalistic side, that when you don't have a proper expression of, and you don't allow it to kind of breathe, you suppress it, it comes out in really toxic ways. Case in point, I'm not knocking anybody who's religious, but in the Catholic Church, there's a very high preponderance of, inappropriate sexual misconduct because of this suppression of the natural impulse, right? And so learning how to dance with your dark passenger is really about taking what you're most ashamed of, bringing it to the light, especially towards a community of people who are up to the same thing, where you can actually feel safe. And working through the guilt and the shame, believe me, it took a while, it takes time, and it takes courage, because that's the only way that I'm able to speak to you right now, is if I have done some deep inner work on working through that, so that I can take that part of me that I've been feeling ashamed about, and I can actually now see the innocence of it. You actually see your innocence. How do you know that you're there? You know that you're there when you can look in a mirror and say, wow, I love you. And you mean it. And so that's how Kira can get on a call and say, I've been through the worst part of my life. Although now, for the first time in my life, I can look in a mirror and say, I love you, and truly mean it. And it's obvious, it comes through, but not in a cocky way, in a very embodied way, that you're mission driven and you're empathetic, and not in I see that, I feel, and people will feel that in you. And when you get this part right, learning how properly to dance with your dark passenger, when you finally get that right, people will sense your authenticity when you're speaking to them, especially when it's about business, because your business will only thrive when it's actually coming through you, rather than a fake kind of mask that you're putting on. So to have your business being able to be spoken, coming through you the way Kira is doing right now, because you can see that it's worth millions of dollars in your company. Because if you don't have that ability to be real and take off the mask and share your shame the way Kira has done, the way, I'm still working on. I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress, and I continue to stay with the work. If you can do that right, then you will attract the perfect clients who've been waiting for you, because they see themselves in you and they trust you and they know you because you know yourself. You feel known. I feel you share yourself vulnerably. That's possible for you, even though you might be judging yourself, saying, no, that's not possible for me. I can't see myself doing that. It is entirely possible. It's actually critical. If you want to create the life of your design, which is what this whole game is about, to learn how to be trigger proof to yourself so that you can create that. Now, I want you to take an audit as I share this, and I'm going to get you to ask yourself this question. Can I honestly look in a mirror and say, I love you to that person? And if not, what have been the events? You don't have to share it if you don't want to, but that would be great if you, can be vulnerable and share, because this is what we do. This is what I do with my clients. We get us to share, even though it's difficult. What story about yourself are you attributing to the reason why you're not able to love yourself? Why? Now, if you're having troubles with that, take a moment. I'd like to see. I'd like to hear. I'd like to read. If you're having troubles being able to do that, then you're in good company, because there was a period of time where I couldn't look in a mirror, especially after what I had done. The guilt and the shame pretty much consumed me to the point where I was ready to just call it quits, ready to end it, because how can I be so successful and make such a difference in people's lives, and yet everybody, and here's the other part, everybody knew about it too. Everybody in the community. I just became like, it was the thing that I attributed that I could never love myself again. I was beating myself up so much. It was probably the worst feeling in my life. And so that's why I'm so dedicated. And if you don't do that right, if you don't love yourself and you're not able to look in a mirror and say, I love you, your kids can't fully feel your love from them, from you. Let me repeat that. If you don't fully love yourself, your children won't really be able to feel your love for them fully. I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying fully. Because if I'm expressing love to you and I'm doing it from a place of neediness of your approval because I don't have it in myself, you can feel the inauthenticity of that. You can feel the neediness of that. You're going to have an emotional reaction. You're going to be like, "Ooh, there's something weird about this guy." But if I look you in the...
I would love you to speak a bit on, I feel as women, we certainly use our kids to fulfill a missing part in ourselves, absolutely. But I feel like we place a lot of pressure on our husbands to fill that void for us. And there's this constant expectation on them to validate us in a way that we should feel whole and validate ourselves for. And it's actually not their responsibility to do that.
Yeah, it's not their job. It's your job to love you, you know? And so when you finally do this and you learn how to dance with those little voices, the shadow part of you, and you learn how to work them, what happens is you get a level of fulfillment and authenticity. You get a level of understanding for yourself. And because you see the innocence of yourself, you're not as easily triggered by other people's unconsciousness, because you see the innocence of your own unconsciousness. You say, he's such a selfish bastard. Okay, he's not selfish. He's selfish in a moment of unconsciousness. But if I can love my own unconscious selfishness, and I can really see the innocence of that, when he does it or she does it, I can see through the ego and love them because I love myself, because I love the reflection that I see in myself through them. I know that sounds confusing. Just trust me, it's true. So loving yourself is the hallmark of really learning how to really have intimacy with other people. Because as you said, Kira, if you don't do it properly, you're always going to be needing likes, hearts, acknowledgement. And when I'm not resourced in fully owning my own power, I'm constantly needing the approval. How many people are liking me? You know, why is nobody acknowledging me? And I'm constantly outside of myself, and I'm disassociated from myself. Mm-hmm. So that's what happens. You get a sense of fulfillment, a sense of authenticity. Number one was regulate your nervous system. Number two was get complete with primordial relationships. Number three was learn how to dance with your dark passenger. Okay? So imagine what happens in your life when you start taking on these three. What happens to your children's future? What happens to your business? What happens to your relationships? Because you truly own your own power. Now, the next stage in becoming trigger-proof is the art of empathic communication. So learning empathic communication. I'm the first to admit that empathy was not a superpower of mine. Okay? It was not a superpower of mine. Hold on one second here. Give me 10. Empathy was not a superpower of mine. And so I had to learn that. And so what ended up happening was I started learning these skills. I started learning these skills of empathic communication, and I was able to get in the world of other people. Why? Because I was able to get into my own world. I was able to empathize with me first. And when you learn, like many of you are empaths. And what happens is you're empathic, meaning you're really good at getting in the world of another person, because when you were a child, life was such a shit show that in order to get your needs met and in order to survive, you had to take care of everybody else. Right? And so you learned to be empathetic, but you stopped learning how to be empathetic towards yourself. So those types of people learn how to have empathic communication with self, and the people who don't have very good empathy, the more of the narcissistic kind of types of people, which can become like that. Many of you, if you're in a power couple dynamic, you run the risk of kind of venturing into that, and that can happen with success, which certainly happened to me, was really honing in on empathic communication. So that's number 4. And number five is community and commitment. That if you want to be trigger proof, it's impossible for you to do it alone. Your relationship becomes a spiritual practice, becomes a laboratory, which you practice in. However, there requires that you have a community. That's why you have a tribe like Kira that you can bounce ideas off of, to have a community and a mentor that you're able to share what's so, and have them hold you accountable to the greatest version of you. Because if you don't do that right, you're going to go call your friends, the community that you create of friends, and that's usually not very high consciousness conversation. They're just supporting you in a victim story, which at first is important if you've gone through a challenging time, but you'll get stuck there and there's no growth. So it's imperative for you to find a group where you actually have people standing for your greater version. Number 1 is regulating your nervous system. Number 2 is primordial relationships. Number 3 is learning how to dance with your dark passenger. Number 4 is, what was it again? Empathic communication to self and empathic communication to other. And number 5 is commitment. Because why? Because your life depends on it. Because my life depended on it. I dedicated myself to teaching these tools, these skills in dealing with your triggers so that you can have loving, intimate, empathic relationships and businesses that are heart-centered, because the world needs you to step up in that. And commitment and community is number 5. So imagine what would happen if you took that on. What opens up for your life, and what has it cost you in your life right now in terms of relationship, business, health, that you haven't really made those things a priority.
And that's actually a really powerful process to go through, Nima, is to actually sit down and write down what it has cost you. Because I think that it would be a huge disservice if you've listened to this today and you now have some awareness around this, but you just go back to your day-to-day life and don't make any attempt to change anything, because life won't change unless you're willing to change, unless you're willing to put in the effort. And you won't be perfect, but the more you practice this stuff, the more your life does become, there's an ease and a grace to it that perhaps you haven't experienced before, and you just get better and better at it. But if you don't know what it will cost you not to make this change, not to move forward, not to level up, then you probably won't put in the effort. And then to be fair, you kind of don't deserve a better life and what leveling up means if you're not willing to put the energy and the effort in.
Leveling up requires you to face your fear. Here's the thing. Here's how you know you're moving in the right direction. Number 1, it's scary as crap. But anything worthwhile is you're taking the leap and going inward. And those are the courageous and heroic people.
It's scarier though, Nima. Don't you reckon it's scarier that no change happens? Like change is scary as fuck, but no change.
Here's the thing though, Kira. I'm miserable, but it's familiar.
Yeah.
I'm miserable, but it's familiar. But to go outside of possibility and do the necessary work and look in and invest in my greater version. I'm scared to do all that. I have all these excuses. I'm too afraid of that unknown. I'm going to revert back to the miserable known. You got to call your ego out and step into that. And so what I wanted to, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but that's where the cost is transformational, because there was a time in my life where I couldn't do it for me because I didn't love myself. But when I look at my children and who I want them to be in the world, I know that it's my responsibility to go first so that I can give them that gift of their greatness.
100%. So I just did a little thing there. I have this training that I wanted to leave you guys with before we do a little moment of Q&A. It's plus. It's international. If you're in Australia, be here. So it's the +1. So it's plus
Facebook.
America. Yeah, I have it here. You have it there in the
live.
Yeah, in the Zoom, you have it there.
Yep.
So it's +1 647 558-9895. Go ahead in there on that. You want to type in on your phone, type in the word training. Okay. And then what's going to happen in that number, plus, you got to do the plus 1-647-558-9895. You want to text the word training. What's going to happen is a little prompt that's going to say, thank you for requesting my training. What email should I send it to? It's going to send it to you, and it's going to be a 30-minute training of 5 other shifts that I take my clients, specifically exactly like Kira, and we get them to the point where they're powerfully aligned and on purpose through that transitional anxiety. And what I want to do is I want you to, leave you with this, before any questions is, if I've resonated with anyone, please reach out on Messenger or whatever. Please reach out. And if what I'm saying resonated with you, if you have questions, if you want me to take a look at your specific case and you're really committed to actually clearing that, I'm happy to be of service, to see, what's possible, and watch the training as well. Get more information, get really connected with that. Type in the training and really watch it carefully. Take notes, because everybody in your life will benefit when you do this. Everybody in your life will benefit, because I've noticed that I've been able to transform my company, people around me, patients. When they come and see me, they're like, I feel better just being in your presence. And I'm like, yeah, that's the nervous system regulation. That's the work, because energetically I'm resonating differently, and your business is dependent on you stepping up into this. And so I just really enjoy sharing this. And if I'm resonating with anybody and you really would love, you're in that space and you want to avoid going towards disaster and your family is that important, I would love to speak with you and talk about your case and see what's possible.
Amazing. Well, did you want to do some Q&A or?
Sure.
Got to run.
Sure. I got a few minutes. I can do
if there's 1 or 2 questions. While we're waiting, just type in the comments and then I'll keep an eye on that. Just while we're waiting for that, I've also posted the YouTube channel links where you can get the recording. And also there's a new Empowered Women's group where you can go and share notes and talk to one another and share your experiences in, a private setting as well. So please have a look at those links.
Also, please join my Facebook group, The Art of Powerful Alignment. I'll welcome you in. You want to, I'll get you in there. You can see all the content. The Art of Powerful Alignment. Get it? I'm a chiropractor. Alignment. So The Art of Powerful. Make sure you request to join that.
There was a question. I can't see it now, so I can't read the whole thing, but it was around releasing resentment. I think it was, if you regulate your nervous system, does this help you release resentment?
Well, the first thing is when you release resentment, you first want to work on regulating the nervous system, because when we start doing the work on taking what you're most resentful about, it's going to bring stuff up. But if you're regulated, we can then go into an inquiry and clear the resentment better. So it works in unison. The resentment's not going to go away. The resentment comes from a perception that you were wronged, that you were a victim, that you didn't receive fair exchange in the deal. And through the inner work, we rebuild that. We change that story. Clearing resentment is not just about nervous system regulation. That's the foundation of it. Clearing resentment is about changing the story. Great question. Any others?
How can I work on regulating if I cannot for the life of me find any time alone?
Okay. That's the challenge. You literally have to set some boundaries and create space.
Can I answer that one? Because I'm going to assume this is a mum. Look, I understand my life is in a different position today, but, when Jordan was born 11 years ago, we were in a tough financial position. I was a stay-at-home mum, so if you work as well, then that's another element that I didn't have at the time. We were sharing a car, we were paying rent week to week. but I still resourced myself to create boundaries and create space and time. You have a choice. It is your life, and where there's a will, there's a way. I would do babysitting swaps with a family friend that I trusted. We would swap a day a week each with each other so that we could have one day to ourselves. I joined a gym that had a creche, so that I created a space every single day where I could have time to myself. So it's about being resourceful and asking yourself better quality questions. How could you find the time? How could you make it work? Rather than resigning to the fact that you can't.
TJ, you have to look at this as life or death because the well-being of your whole family depends on it. And so easy for me to say as a guy, single guy here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, when you have what's going on, I'm just telling it to you like from a neuroscience perspective, that's just a story. I can't find alone time. That's just a story. I know that. I've witnessed it, the people that I work with. Yeah. So it's really the work that I do is you're really called upon to really examine all of the stories that you have in your life, not just that one. That's not that story of I can't find alone time is part of your constraint. You have many stories. And so it's important for us when you're becoming trigger proof and you're really getting powerfully aligned that we look and see what are the stories, what are the old traumas that
for women, it's a worthiness. Like if my children need me, I'm going to put myself last. It's like there's guilt around it. You almost feel better about yourself that you're the mum that puts your children first. But in actual fact, your children get so much better from you when you put yourself first. And, the old translation of selfish actually has a positive meaning to it. And in our society, we've made it negative. But actually, I am selfish as a mother because I'm a better mum when I am.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to also say, I'm going to be coming to Australia in October. And we only have 30 seats in the weekend workshop. Let me know if you're, interested in coming. I mean, half of them are already spoken for my kind of VIP clients and stuff like that, like Kira, obviously. But if you want to come for a weekend of breath work and badassery and learning the tools, the overview method, we're coming in October 19th weekend. I believe we're either going to be in Melbourne or Gold Coast. So we're working on that. If you really want to be participant, please let me know and reach out. I'm not difficult to find. You can find me on Kira's page. And if you haven't already joined the Art of Powerful Alignment, please do so right now. Reach out to me. I would love the feedback in the group as well, what you got most from this, because I always am looking for feedback, positive and negative, how I can improve. This is a very vulnerable story. I'm probably going to have a little bit of a vulnerability hangover. Every time I speak, I share a little bit more about it as I'm continuously doing the work. I'm really dedicated to helping families go from relationship crisis and limbo to being powerfully aligned, either together or powerfully aligned separate. That doesn't necessarily mean that the marriage has to work. However, there's no reason why there has to be war and collision. And I'm using my discoveries and my recovery to share that. And it's been very, very, very healing for me to speak to a group of moms. And I'm really grateful that you held space for me to share in a space of non-judgment, even though there was some very challenging, difficult conversations. I'm committed to exposing the truth and to share it in a way which empowers women, empowers men, supports men, empowers women, because the thing that creates the most volatility in relationships is disempowerment. So that's why I'm so behind your movement, Kira, is to empower moms, empower women, because the more empowered you are, the more control you have in your life, the more likelihood you'll be able to leave a relationship that's not serving you, the more likelihood you'll be able to have a say and have pride to be able to raise your children in an environment where that cycle of abuse and trauma stops. And I'm doing this for future generations and past generations. And I'm ready to work with whoever is dedicated to do the same.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much for your time. And, you know, if this is something that you all love and you want to see continue and you want to have Nima back and other incredible, you know, mentors that we come across in our lives who have helped us, you know, please share the love, because the more we get this out there, the more we can create space and time. And then I'm sure Nima would absolutely love to come back and share more of his wisdom at another date.
Yeah. If you join that group, if you join that, or you get that training, you're going to be on my list. So every time I do a Facebook Live, your email will be notified. You can jump on and interact with me. I'm very accessible. If you have questions, I might do a Facebook Live for your question. And if you really want some extra help, as I said, I'm going to give you everything I got in this hour. If you want more help, I'll tell you where to go to get it. And if you want me to take a closer look at your situation, please let me know, and we'll make sure. We want to serve as many families, become empowered, powerfully aligned, trigger-proof moms as possible. So love you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time. I don't know what time it is there for you in Canada.
7:40 p.m.
Okay, not too bad then. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining and supporting. Have a great day.